good people don't smoke marijuana.
I've known Larry for a long time.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, depending upon where you are. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio. This one is for Saturday, the 19th of October, 2019. I'm your host, Larry Love. We're here every week to bring you the latest information on the fight for legalization of medical cannabis, responsible adult use cannabis, and everybody's fighting all over the world. And here in New Mexico, we're even about to hopefully get rec, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But our guest today will be one of the extraction companies. This is Alejandro Garcia, and Alejandro is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Botanical Laboratories International here in New Mexico, BOTA Labs. And people can learn no matter where you are. You can learn by other people's good things that they do and by mistakes. We need to make sure, especially that when we legalize, that we do it the right way. So we'll talk with Alejandro in the second part of the show about vaping, about their products, inhalers, everything in the second half of the show. But first, here in New Mexico, the governor put together a work group to study the possibilities and rules and regs that should be put in place to legalize for adult use in the 2020 session, which is starting in January. So it's a short session. It's only 30 days this year, so it's kind of tough to do that. But in releasing the rules, there were two things that I didn't care for personally. One thing is that law enforcement really has a little bit too much say, I believe. They have decided, and to appease law enforcement, that they would delay home grow. Yeah, that's right. Adult use, cannabis, and no home grow. So they're still going to be putting people into the system, whether it's a fine or whatever. It's a hassle. This is not real legalization. It's more like decriminalization. If people are still going to get fined for growing a couple of plants at home, or other misdemeanors and so forth, it's really not good. Now, a lot of people say, let's just sign this thing, let's get it going, we can fix it later. Fix it later hasn't shown to be such a great thing. It takes a long time, and law enforcement should not have too much say. Sure, they're going to get a little bit of money from the taxes. That's okay. Their job is going to be a little bit different, but it's just not really a legalization bill. Now, the other thing, of course, for here in New Mexico, they've done something that I don't believe any other state has done. They're allowing for medical cannabis lounges. Okay, now this is partially because people in the outlying areas of New Mexico don't have access to even dispensaries. They have to drive 3 hours each direction. So and also the fact that we now have reciprocity coming for the medical cannabis program, but we sort of already have it because due to some language problems, so to speak, in the new bill, people from out of state right now, if you have a card in another state, and even if you don't, I believe you can apply to have a medical card here in New Mexico. So that's going to cause a lot of problems because people won't have a place to legally imbibe their medicine. So the medical cannabis lounges, so to speak, that they want to put in, initially they're saying that only the 35 or 34 LNPPs, these are the licensed producers that are growing and dispensing the medical cannabis, only they can have a medical lounge right now. They'll probably open it up later, but you know what? How about giving some other people a chance? These people, the LMPPs, most of them been treading water, at least 90% of them treading water, for recreational. They're not really medical, looking at their products, looking at their stores, looking at the names of some of their entities. They're not really medical. So they have a license to print money. There's little people. Let's not call them little people. Let's just call them the normal people that want to get into this industry, that have been around it, some of us, for 50 years. Spread the wealth around. If it wasn't for the patients, and if it wasn't for the patients and the people in California in 1996 that legalized it because of the AIDS epidemic there, we wouldn't have medical right now, and we wouldn't have recreational. It's because we proved that this is non-toxic. It's not toxic. It's not hurting anybody. It's not killing anybody. This is just outrageous to allow people just to print money. Give us a chance, would you, Department of Health, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham? Anyway, that's my rant for today. Thank you, Louis Black. Anyway, let's move on to getting some news out here. Let's get rid of the negative first, okay? There's always reefer madness out there. Florida House members, Florida, which is going to be already is a huge state with lots of problems. Florida House members are warning about the dangers of marijuana.
Advocates who want to see recreational marijuana legalized in Florida are ramping up support with new mailers. As
WPTV News Channel 5's Hani Rodriguez found out, lawmakers are being proactive in case the issue ends up on the 2020 ballot.
The House Health and Human Services Committee actually brought in a Harvard doctor to learn what this could mean for people in Florida. So that doctor told lawmakers that research suggests marijuana can be dangerous. She said long-term use has been linked to mental illness, and she also talked about concerns over highway safety. Now, on the other hand, advocates who were at that meeting said the doctor cherry-picked data. Right now, 11 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized recreational marijuana. In Fort Pierce, I'm Hani Rodriguez, WPTV News Channel 5.
See, that's really the situation with most of the negative reefer madness out there. They cherry pick the data that makes them look good. However, in the long run, it's not really true. There's studies finding that people that have smoked cannabis are actually more careful when they're driving. Now, do I like driving when I'm high? No, I don't. But I don't do that very often. But the whole crucial issue here is what is impairment. We've talked about this for the last few years. You can have over 5 nanograms per milliliter of THC in your blood and not be impaired at all, not be high at all. You could just have residual leftover from days ago. So they have a big problem ahead of them to define what is impairment, because they can't lock you up because you have some low nanograms of THC in your blood. Anyway, let's move over to Fox News. Because of the vaping situation, and we will talk more about that with Alejandro Garcia later, because they're making some very clean vape cartridges. Stocks are going up and down. A lot of people are making money and losing money in the stock market right now with the cannabis industry. The vaping thing has caused a little problem. Here's a report from, I believe it was it's Fox News, in regard to stock market and the vaping situation.
Cannabis stocks, because they are coming off a very disappointing week of earnings. Could some of this have to do with concerns over health in vaping? I want to bring in Dr. Mark Siegel, because now we're starting to hear, Doc Siegel, that as they analyze these deaths,
Doc Siegel has never been a fan, by the way.
THC keeps coming up. The use of THC in vaping devices, not the vaping itself, and that's making some people wonder. There's more and more concern that maybe we've moved too fast with this legal marijuana thing.
Absolutely, Charles. And I do believe that over time, concerns about how you can fill that cartridge with anything. You can fill it with all different kinds of amounts of marijuana products and THC, which is the active ingredient, which is up to 30–40% now of it, and they're laced with different kind of chemicals. All of that is coming to the public realization. I'm happy about that. But the other problem here is, and let's look at California. In California, 80% of the marijuana is grown illegally, 14 million pounds. And you know what happens to it? 80% of that is exported. And you know what's to other countries, other states in the country, illegally. And you know what's in there? Those vaping products, that THC you're talking about, the oils, the chemicals. It's all going all over the country illegally. Why is the illegal industry burgeoning and the legal industry not doing well? Regulation. It's too hard to get a cannabis shop. It's too expensive. There's too much licensing fees. That's why the stocks are down. They cannot compete with the illegal trade.
So more regulations, but also maybe the ability to enforce these regulations too, right? I mean, it's sort of, so
great point.
Are you suggesting then that maybe if we had a blanket, at least medical marijuana approval across the country, they were able to do interstate banking, that maybe this would actually lessen this problem?
That's a possibility. Something to make it more standard might lessen it, because even within California itself, one city regulates different than another city. It's so difficult to enforce. But up in Canada, where it is legal across the country, they're still having a problem competing with the illegal trade. So they'd have to figure out a way to do it that was healthy, where we could market, where you and I could come on here and market it and say, hey, if you get it legally, you're not going to get sick. You're not going to get sick from a vaping pen, because most of that stuff is illegal. Most of that, again, the vaping cartridges are illegal. So if I could inform medically and say health, but, you know, let's face it, I also want the message out there that marijuana over time, though I think there are medical uses for pain and other issues like seizures, over time, marijuana also causes risks of psychosis,
Here we go.
risks of not doing well on tests. I want the amount of THC active chemical in marijuana reduced. I don't like this 20 or 30%. So I'm all for legalizing it as long as we can diminish the amount of active chemical.
Right. I mean, there's a lot to be learned here. A lot of people wondering if this whole thing just moved a lot too fast.
Way too fast.
Yeah.
And we're
It's
seeing
only
it in the
been
market.
80 years.
Todd Siegel, thank you very much.
Good to
Always
see
a
you.
pleasure seeing
Yeah,
you.
good to see you.
Way too fast. Unbelievable. Psychosis. There's just no basis for any of that. These people are still stuck in a culture of 100 years ago, which really had nothing to do about medicine, because cannabis was a medicine 100 years ago and before. It had to do with cutting down trees and making paper for the Hearst Corporation. Unbelievable. Anyway, speaking of Canada, you know, one of the situation really is, how do you combat the black market? That is what's hurting a lot of people. Here in New Mexico, a lot of the LMPPs are blaming sick people, medical cannabis patients with PPLs that can grow their own. They're blaming the black market on them at a certain percentage, which is like totally ridiculous. Meanwhile, the DOH and MCP, they're worried about the people they license selling stuff out the back door. Well, they just mentioned in that Fox report about Canada having a problem with the legal cannabis and the gray market. So this report is about Quebec is now offering legal cannabis at $4.49 a gram, which will beat the gray market or black market, whatever you want to call it. Here's this.
For almost a year now, Canadians have been able to buy recreational cannabis legally. But at what price?
Normally I find the prices are a little bit higher than what I tend to expect growing up smoking cannabis.
Crowdsourced data from Statistics Canada shows the price of cannabis was down overall in the third quarter of this year, with the price of illegal weed still far lower than the price of legal cannabis. According to Stats Canada, the average price of a gram of legal weed was $10.23 between July and September of this year, while a gram of illegal marijuana was going for, on average, $5.59.
One of the reasons I like to purchase from a legal store is usually the availability and the convenience.
For marijuana store owner Sarah Ballantyne, the key takeaway is that prices are dropping.
We have been seeing wholesale prices come down and a lot more availability from the Liquor Cannabis Distribution Board, and we do pass these savings on to our customers.
Statistics Canada says this is the first time since legalization the price of legal pot has dropped. A change Ballantyne believes will be the start of a trend.
With more availability and more product being sent to the distribution center, we will see prices come down. It's just a matter of time before more licensed producers are licensed and we see more availability.
When it comes to the future of legal pot prices in BC, a lot will depend on the province. It's the only wholesaler, and stores aren't allowed to sell below those government-set prices. Megan Turcato, Global News, Vernon.
Of course, one of the problems is these early growers and dispensers are so used to getting $13 to $15 a gram that they're used to that revenue. They know that they can sell. Doesn't even matter what the quality is. Whatever they can grow, good or bad, they can sell it for $13 or $14 a gram. That's why the prices aren't going down. And that's spelled greed, Greed. Yeah. Staying in Canada, here's what's happening with veterinarians and cats and dogs and cannabis.
Good boy. Cats tend to be far less frequent. I think I've only seen one cat versus very, very many dogs. Dogs tend to eat a lot more weird things than cats.
One of those weird things is marijuana. Since legalization last October, there's been a sharp incline in the number of cases seen by vets.
And how do you know that an animal has ingested marijuana?
Well, there are certain signs that you can look for. Lethargy, sometimes dribbling urine, incoordination when walking. Most often they seem just like they're very sleepy.
Similar to what a human might feel, but with a major difference. Just a fraction amount of weed eaten by a pet can lead to high toxicity levels.
When it becomes a toxicity is when we actually have to decide on treatment, which is mostly supportive, making sure they remain hydrated if they're not able to eat or drink for a prolonged period of time.
Which can get costly for the owner, $500 and up, depending on the severity of the case. Dr. Cook says medical-grade marijuana and edibles are the worst-case scenario for animals because of their high THC levels.
If you are a user, just be aware that other people may have pets, and you should be discarding your remnants somewhere safe. It doesn't seem like it's something that's going to be going away.
Dan Nisnik, Global News.
It's like anything else, people. Be responsible. If you have children in the house, you lock your liquor cabinet, right? If you have children in your house, you lock your medicine cabinet so they can't get into it. If you have cannabis in your house, that needs to be in a safe place. We have to consider other people and other animals and living humans and non-humans on this planet. All right, let's move over to what is the really hot topic these days. It's harvest time, and there's many first-time hemp farmers that are out there now. We've been talking about this every week. Here in Michigan, they have high hopes for their first hemp harvest.
While marijuana, both medical and recreational, has been getting all the attention, pot's so-called brother, hemp, is the state's newest cash crop.
Barton Dieters talked with a pair of hemp farmers who are among the first to harvest and go to market about how the harvest is doing. Barton.
Good evening, Brian and Marley. Hemp is marijuana, but it won't get you high. You are familiar with its extract, CBD, and this year the crop is legal at both the state and federal level, and harvesting is underway. At first glance, the Belding facility and the nearby farm looks like a stoner's dream.
Ultimately, nobody's going to get high when the percentage is 0.4% THC.
Bradley Nichols and Daniel Balio are the co-owners of the Hemp Train LCC, a company they started planning after meeting in cannabis-friendly Oregon about a year and a half ago.
I mean, this is the new farmer instead of having straw in your mouth.
Since then, they've been leasing land, buying seed, and hiring help, about 15 to 30 workers to help them harvest.
I mean, a lot of it has been sort of jumping out of the airplane and building the parachute on the way down.
They are growing 4 acres of hemp, which can be used for all different types of CBD product for people and pets.
We're kind of, front runners or leaders in the industry now, first to market in a way.
Industry estimates are $10,000 to $12,000 per acre for hemp. But if trimmed up with the buds separated, it can be worth 2 or 3 times that price. That compares with corn farmers who are lucky to get $500 an acre for their product.
There's people putting it in everything. You can get it at almost every local gas station.
I mean, Ben & Jerry's ice cream is talking about it. You know? I mean, Nabisco's talking about putting it in products, but we're going through some hurdles right now with the FDA.
They are high on the possibilities of their young business.
It is interesting. The average age in the U.S. for farmers is 60 years old, and the average first-time farmer in the U.S. is 46 years old. So coming in as 33 as a farmer puts way below the average.
They are among 564 hemp farmers licensed to grow hemp this season under a pilot program by the Michigan Department of Agriculture. There are also 423 processors and handlers holding state licenses to help bring the inaugural crop to market.
I think you're going to see a lot of young people that are interested in it because a lot of the stuff that the cannabis plant provides really can help change the world.
Meanwhile, hemp farmers are waiting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture rules expected this year that would put hemp in the same status as other agricultural commodities. This would qualify hemp farms for loans and insurance and also put them under the Right to Farm Act, meaning states and municipalities would be limited in excluding hemp farms. In studio, Bart Dieters, News 8.
It's just a plant, you know, and it's being overregulated for stupid reasons. But, you know, a lot of people jumped into the hemp industry, rightfully so. It's a great opportunity. But you really need to think ahead of time. You got to know ahead of time where you're selling your biomass to your end product, whatever it is, unless you're making your own products and so forth. So here's another group of hemp farmers who decided to help each other, and they've started a cooperative amid the growth and, of course, this harvest season. Here's this one.
Ohio Valley farmers are reaping their first hemp harvest since federal law changed to legalize hemp. With some 27,000 acres under production in the region, hemp is booming, but it remains a risky crop with uncertainty about markets, growing practices, and concern that larger players could squeeze out small growers. Liam Niemeyer reports some hemp farmers are forming new cooperatives to reduce that risk and protect small farmers.
Tony Silvernail swings a heavy machete at a stalk of bushy hemp and grabs the 5-foot-tall plant with his sun-weathered hand. It's an unusually hot October day on his farm near Frankfort, Kentucky. Yet Silvernail is celebrating his hemp harvest with a sweat-soaked shirt, a huge smile, and a fat cigar between his teeth.
It's just fun. I mean, this is a payoff right here. Leaving the day with all your fingers is good.
Silvernail has grown organic food for decades. It wasn't until last fall when he and a business partner decided to try their luck at growing organic hemp. But he says he was struggling to get more experienced hemp growers to help him start.
The hemp industry is very closed. It still is. I got in a bad mood, and I'm sitting there eating lunch, and I really came to a moment where, you know what, we got to just do our own thing.
So Silvernail co-founded a cooperative for small, inexperienced hemp growers like himself to help each other learn. The co-op also buys supplies like hemp seeds in bulk and sells the co-op's collective hemp harvest. Cooperatives aren't a new idea in farming, but they're new in the hemp industry, and many Ohio Valley hemp growers are choosing to join cooperatives to share supplies and compete in an increasingly competitive marketplace.
That's our goal, is to be able to keep the 5-acre farmer in business, you know, even when the bigger companies, you know, move into this space.
That's J. Morgan Leach, founder of the West Virginia Farmers Cooperative. Leach says he's worried about the potential for future large-scale hemp production that could push smaller hemp growers out. By banding together, small farmers can compete with larger-scale production. Members of Leach's cooperative also can vote, for example, on what supplies the cooperative buys. He looks to the poultry industry as a cautionary tale. In poultry, large companies often have extensive control over a farmer's production and pricing.
They're totally, you know, hamstrung to the price that the company gives them because it's just how it goes in that industry. Here, this is a new frontier.
Jeffrey Young is an agriculture economist with Murray State University's Center for Agricultural Hemp in West Kentucky. He agrees the potential is there for future hemp consolidation.
I don't want to say join or die, but, you know, it would definitely be in a smaller operator's best interest
to join in on that because they wouldn't have the acreage or the volume or the clout that a larger operator would have.
Young says the new industry is still years away from reaching that level of hemp production, and the amount of hemp grown in the Ohio Valley continues to skyrocket. Ohio only legalized growing hemp in July. Julie Dorn founded the Ohio Hemp Farmers Cooperative in anticipation of that day. She says she believes there's a place for smaller farmers alongside larger investors. But she also cautions farmers need to learn how to grow the new crop reliably first before working with bigger companies.
Yes, corporate is going to come in, and we are going to need them for an outlet to sell all this stuff to, but we need to learn ourselves first and get our feet wet before we jump in.
Dorn says in an expanding and changing industry like hemp, it's better for farmers to stick together. For the Ohio Valley Resource, I'm Liam Niemeyer.
The best thing to do, of course, is to pre-sell your hemp, your hemp biomass and whatever you're turning out, whatever your final product is, ahead of time. Get orders, hemp futures. That's the future. All right. Last week we told you about Howard Stern's show going to California for a week to do 3 shows, and they had Snoop and Seth Rogen on. I mentioned that one of the Howard Stern people, J.D. Harmeyer, had not ever experienced cannabis, so they brought Snoop and Seth Rogen in to talk to J.D. about it and give advice about how to first smoke cannabis. There was a new cannabis lounge called Lowell Farms that opened up, and they all went over there. I don't think Snoop and Seth did. They were in the studio. But here's what Snoop and Seth recommend for first-time cannabis smokers.
You've smoked with Snoop, Seth?
Yeah, many times.
Well, how do you guys come to smoke together? How does that?
I enjoy smoking with Seth.
I like smoking with Snoop too.
Snoop, what do you mean when you say you enjoy smoking with Seth? Are there people who can bum you out?
Yeah, because they talk too motherfucking much and they just get in the way. But Seth enjoys the moment. He's creative. This motherfucker knows how to make a joint that looks like a cross.
Yes, it's true.
Oh, you've shown us that.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a bad motherfucker at that. When he pulled that cross out, I was like, God. Let there be light.
It was one of the most flattering moments.
Does it ever come about where you guys will say, hey, we had such a nice experience being with one another and enjoying weed. Let's get together and specifically just smoke weed, or is it just that you're somewhere socially? Is that how it happens?
We find each other.
You find each other.
Yeah, through the gaze of the atmosphere.
Even with this JD smoking for the first time, I said, you got to listen, these guys are heavyweights. This is like,
Yeah, he
Mike
jumping in
Tyson
with Mike Tyson and Ali. He sure did. He sure did. And he got to fight us back to back.
Yeah. I said, these guys know how to do weed. They really do. And you got to be careful. I told him, and tell me if this is right, maybe 3 hits.
I'd start with 1.
Yeah,
right.
I say a half of 1.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever,
You don't realize how strong that stuff
This is
is.
from 2 guys who have had too many motherfuckers come up and get way
And
too
fall out.
high.
I had a lot of people just, hey, my dream is to smoke with you. Bang. Hey, he dying. I'm gone.
So the real advice, of course, if you'd like to hear the Howard Stern Show, go to SiriusXM and check it out. There's also clips on YouTube. Anyway, that's good advice. I've been telling people for years, if you're going to try cannabis for the first time, or even if you're trying a new strain for the first time, take 1 puff, 2 puffs, put it down, and see how you feel. If for first-time people that have never smoked at all, I would say 1 puff, wait 20 minutes. Don't let people have a bad experience the first time with this plant, because it does too much good to our bodies. We'll be right back in just after the short break with Alejandro Garcia, Director of Sales and Marketing, Botanical Laboratories International, also known as Bota Labs. We'll be right back after this.
It's all about the 420 MMJRadio. The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana.
Hi, this is Anthony Franchosi from the Honest Marijuana Company, and you're listening to Medical Marijuana Radio.
And we're back. And online today I have Alejandro Garcia. Alejandro is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Botanical Laboratories International, also known as BOTA Labs, B-O-T-A Labs. Welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio, Alejandro.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with, what's been going on, the big elephant all over the United States right now, which is the vaping situation. Originally, I found you because I noticed an announcement that Botanical Labs made, a statement of quality, which told me that you guys are interested in really making medical products and so forth. So tell me about why you put that announcement out to talk about your safe vapes.
Well, first and foremost, we wanted to put something out there to ease some of the misinformation and the confusion and the fear that some of the patients may have had with regards to some of the vape cartridges that are on the market, and to kind of give them a reassurance that we at Botanical Laboratories will never and have never used any adulterants, fillers, dilutants, or any artificial ingredients into our cartridges. We pride ourselves in creating pharmaceuticals more than extractions. So our lab is it's very, very high end, and we strive to make sure that the highest levels of safety, cleanliness are met by all of our technicians and our chemists.
So how long have you guys been open here in New Mexico?
We've been open for about 2.5 years now. We got our licensing towards the beginning of 2017, and before we even put out a product, we did about 7 to 8 months of R&D to make sure that the product that we did come out with was stable and reliable, and we could manufacture on a large scale and have consistent results.
All right, so tell me about your cartridges. What's in them? Do they need to be thinned out in order to vape properly, or is your manufacturing procedures, allowing for it not to have any adulterants in it? How did you figure that out? Because you're just let me finish it 1 second. Your statement said that Botanical Laboratories does not use any MCT oil, PG, VG, PEG, or TEC, I'm not sure what that is, or vitamin E acetate, which of course everybody knows now is one of the problems. So I've been talking about this for the last few years, not to smoke any of that stuff. So tell me about your cartridges, and are you adding in terpenes?
So one of the few things that we add back into the actual cartridge is a terpene profile that resembles the original plant profile as if it was fresh. One of the things that we did is we actually partnered up with a cartridge manufacturer to design and create a cartridge specific to our needs, so as to not to need to dilute it, other than for the to reintroduce a terpene profile that the client wants. Most of the cartridges, or a lot of the cartridges out in the market, they have a fruity profile, which we can definitely create. However, we focus more on a cannabis profile or cannabis terpene profile to try and replicate what the plant would naturally give you in nature, or the effects that they would naturally give you as if you were to smoking an actual flower, as opposed to giving you some sort of artificial flavor or something that is not necessarily a cannabis terpene profile in itself.
All right, so you're saying that you're getting some what you're calling on your website natural organic terpenes. Now, I'll give an example as myrcene, which can come from cannabis or it can come from mangoes. So are you using what they're calling, I guess, food grade terpenes?
Correct. So because we do molecular distillation, we can isolate the actual individual terpene from any plant source that we want to, especially depending on what types of terpenes we're trying to acquire. So we'll isolate the terpene that we want. We'll do a lab profile of the actual sample of the fruit or the plant that we're trying to extract to see what it naturally has to offer, and then from there we'll isolate the terpene and extract that terpene in itself. So molecularly and scientifically speaking, a myrcene terpene is no different from a mango or a cannabis plant in itself. Myrcene is myrcene, so we're able to essentially mimic exactly what a cannabis terpene profile would have, even if the terpenes did not come from cannabis itself.
So I guess trying to figure out the dosing of the terpene, I think, is the problem. I've spoken about it many times in the last 4 or 5 years on the show here, that some people at the beginning, because look, this is a new industry and we're all learning as we go along, we're adding a bit too much terpenes back in, which really gave it a great taste and everything, and obviously thinned out the viscosity of the oil so that it could be vaporized. But I always had a problem with a harsh little feeling in the back of my throat. So how long did it take for a Bota to figure out that right point to where it's not too much terpene and it does the work that you want it to do?
Well, it took us about 8 months to come up with a baseline maximum amount of terpenes that we could add to the distillate to not only not thin it out, but also to where it wouldn't be too harsh on the lungs in itself. We understand that terpenes concentrated enough are solvents. With that said, they can be harsh to the lungs and can make it quite unpleasant, for some users, especially if the terpene percentage is too high. So it took us about 8 months to figure that out. It took us about another 6 months to actually pinpoint and perfect the way in which the actual cannabis profile worked. We worked extensively with Steep Hill Labs before they left the state to be able to have about 20 to 28 cannabis profiles that we have almost matched to 100% what the cannabis plant profile would have in nature. So it took us quite a while to actually get to that stage in itself. We're proud to say that, our ability to match a cannabis plant's terpene profile from start to finish is pretty remarkable. We do a good job.
So what you're saying is you can synthesize, so to speak, the terpenes that are contained in Blue Dream, which is a very prominent strain over the last few years, and put that into your distillate to give it a Blue Dream type taste and effect as well, would you say?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a synthesization in itself, because we're, the terpenes that would have already been in the cannabis plant profile for Blue Dream, all we are doing is acquiring those exact same natural terpenes and blending them at the exact same ratio in which a Blue Dream terpene profile would have. So we're not actually synthesizing. We're not creating a terpene out of another terpene. We're just isolating those specific terpenes and blending them as nature would blend.
I think the word you used a few minutes ago is better than synthesize, and I'm sorry that I used that, but I think mimicking, I think, is the word you used, and I think that's
correct.
Probably a good term to use. So, a lot of people don't really know what distillation is. So can you tell me just about the process and what is a distillate as compared to a extraction of other types?
Well, a distillation is, in the most general of terms, is just the concentration or the isolation and concentration of compounds in cannabis. For example, in cannabis, they're cannabinoids. One of the extraction methods that we use is an ethanol-based extraction method in which we isolate and we target only the cannabinoids in the plant. And we try to exclude fats and lipids and some of the chlorophylls. And as we extract, we concentrate those cannabinoids. Once we concentrate them, we then remove the fats and lipids through winterization. And then at the last stage is when we do a molecular distillation. And what we then do is we isolate only the cannabinoids in the plant, and we essentially strip the remaining non-beneficial compounds off of the plant in itself. We do what we call a terp strip to remove all the terpenes and lighter volatiles that may be in the plant, and then we throw it through a molecular distillation equipment. And in our case, we use a wipe film, which allows us to process higher throughputs. And essentially, what comes out is a concentrated liquid with only the cannabinoids and terpenes that we add back into it, essentially leaving it, only leaving behind the beneficial compounds of the actual plant in itself, and removing the fats, lipids, and chlorophyll.
So let me ask you this: if let's say you took 5 pounds of Blue Dream and made a distillate out of it, and 5 pounds of Super Lemon Haze. Okay, once you make the distillate, is there, because there's probably different terpenes in it, are the terpenes that you extract from that extraction from each individual cultivar, are they put back into the same plant, to the same distillate, and would there be a difference between the distillate from one cultivar to another once everything is stripped out and it's just cannabinoids? What have you found with that?
No, yes, you're absolutely correct. With cannabis, cannabis is very similar to wine in the sense that one strain of Blue Dream grown in the high desert of New Mexico with the type of acidity that we have in our soil, and this is of course assuming that this is a outdoor grown plant, that is exposed to the New Mexico environment in itself, will produce a Blue Dream that is going to be representative of the New Mexico environment, as opposed to a Blue Dream that you grew in California, for example.
Totally understand. Yeah, I get that because of the humidity, the temperatures, all that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Some plants,
yes.
Sativas are better grown in certain climate and equatorial, weather type of stuff, than indicas and so forth. Indicas are, high mountain stuff and the cold and so forth. So all right. So what can distillate, other than putting in a vape pen, are people using distillates in their edibles as well?
Yes, the reason as to why the distillates have become very popular on edibles is because we strip it from we strip the chlorophyll and a lot of the fats and lipids. Some of that grassy, hashy taste that some edibles can have because of the natural compounds in cannabis are stripped. So what you are getting is a chocolate or an edible, for that matter, that more closely resembles what you would normally eat from the grocery store, or something that you cook yourself, without that necessarily pungent taste of cannabis. Now, you can add the terpenes of the plant profile that you extracted to mimic the full, the entourage effect of that particular plant with the cannabinoids in the actual distillate, to try and achieve your sativa or indica mood in itself, or feeling, or effect, better termed, from the edible in itself.
So how would that differ from a full plant extract put into an edible?
It's just going to be, I could equate it to if you were to drink a stout as opposed to champagne. It's going to be a little bit more crisp when I mean about the edible with the distillate as opposed to the edible with
full extract.
with a full extract.
Plant
So yeah, you're definitely going to know that you're trying cannabis when you try a full plant extract in itself. And most most confectioners and edible manufacturers do additional processes to the oil to remove some of the fats and lipids and some of that chlorophyll to try and make it more of a tolerable taste. Because some strains naturally are just more pungent than others, and well, some strains just don't normally translate well into an edible. You don't want to be tasting cheese with with citrus per se or something along those
Well, I
lines.
don't know about that. I've had some nice cheese with a lemon rind on it. That's quite good, actually.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I would, and maybe that was a wrong example, but there's just some smells and some
I understand
taste.
that don't go together. I get it.
Correct.
Yeah. So, what? So I know that you guys make an inhaler. Okay. So tell me about the inhaler, and is that a powder or a kind of a mist kind of inhaler?
Well, the inhaler that we manufacture is it's a mist inhaler. Because of the nature of the distillate in itself, being that it's a very thick liquid. For that, for lack of a better term, it's actually thinned out with a small amount of ethanol, very minute, enough to let it move inside of the cartridge in itself, and then a propellant is injected. It's a similar manufacturing process that any albuterol inhaler would go through. That's of course mist based,
right?
For
albuterol is for allergies that many people have. I understand that.
Right, I think it's for I believe it's a steroid for your lungs. So if you were to have like an asthma attack, it would help alleviate and allow you to breathe.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong, our inhaler is not designed or meant to as an alternative for albuterol. We're just using the inhaler as the delivery method in itself. I want to make that clear.
So what would that be? Is it just another way of ingesting cannabinoids, or is it directly affecting a particular condition that a medical cannabis patient might have, and this would get to it better? What do you think it would be good for?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Just like you would apply a topical to your arm, it's going to directly affect the arm in itself. However, the THC and the cannabinoids, once absorbed into your body, will have a synergistic effect throughout your whole body in itself. You may not necessarily get a head high from it, but you'll feel an overwhelming sense of well-being. With the mist in itself, any portion of your body that mist comes in contact with as it's traveling through your lungs will get a medicinal effect, similar to what a topical would do. The great thing about the inhaler is because of the small particles of the mist, combined with your mucous membranes inside your mouth, through your throat and into your lungs, the body actually absorbs it quite quickly, and it works in two ways. It works similar to what an edible would feel, and it also works similar to how a vape would feel. One of the great advantages of the inhaler is that there's no combustion, so you're not heating up any of the cannabinoids, terpenes, and you're not running into the possibility of converting any of those into carcinogenics.
So do you think you're actually ingesting more of the cannabinoids because there's no combustion involved? You're just getting it all in. None of it's going up in the air.
Exactly.
How many milligrams of cannabinoids and THC are in a inhaler?
Per puff, you're going to be getting between 5 to 6 milligrams of THC, depending on the potency of the starting oil in itself. The cartridge in itself can handle. Contains 1 gram of distillate in itself. So with the new laws that New Mexico just passed, now that we don't have a cap on our potency,
right?
Our inhalers are between 5 milligrams and 6.6 milligrams per puff, and each inhaler contains about 140 sprays.
Okay, 140 times 7 is 700 and about 900, almost 1,000 milligrams, almost 1,000 milligrams of cannabinoids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close to it.
Yeah,
So,
and our extraction method, we do tests of every run that we do, and we average about 96% cannabinoid extraction, which means that after the plant material after it's extracted, we've literally extracted about every single bit of cannabinoid of the plant in itself.
are you making a CBD inhaler at all?
That is something that we're currently working on R&Ding. We've partnered up with a few test groups to try and come up with an inhaler that is going to be similar in potency and in effect than our THC inhaler. Obviously, it's not psychoactive, but because the compounds are a bit different in how they work, we want to make sure that we don't have any failures.
So the inhaler is going to have 900 or so milligrams, whatever it comes out to. So, for instance, for me, when I take an edible or and so forth, which this really is, you're ingesting this, into your body. I need like maybe 70 or 80 milligrams. So you're saying that I could take 10 hits of that, and would I get the same type of effect as if I ate a 70 or 80 milligram brownie?
Yes, you would. In fact, you'd get the effect sooner because the onset would be faster because of the aerosol mist being absorbed by your lungs. However, the sensation and the effects would last just as long as the edible because of the oil being absorbed by your mucous membranes throughout your body.
Right. So I've tried. Are you doing anything with nanotechnology? That's where they encapsulate the cannabinoids in a fat molecule.
No, not at the moment, but we are working on we're in the process of an upgrade through our whole system in itself. So within the next year, our facility in itself is quite vast. So we're gonna be adding more capabilities to what we can already produce. However, because we try to do everything in as highest standards as we can, we are going slow and procuring all the equipment of the highest quality that we can procure it.
Gotcha. So, how much? What's the manufacturer's retail price on the inhaler? What do you recommend that they sell them for?
We recommend that the inhaler be sold for between $60 to $70. However, some of the LNPPs do sell it for a little bit higher, $80 to $85. I think I've seen it. It does sell quite well. We do have many LNPPs who currently have it in stock.
You're welcome to go ahead and mention who carries your products, so if people are interested in trying them, they can go out there.
Oh, great! Yeah. So one of the dispensaries that carries our products is Everest. High Desert Relief also has them. Pecos Valley Producers carries them. New Mexican carries our inhaler up in Santa Fe, and I believe in Taos. There's also Harvest Foundation that also carries our inhaler and our cartridges. All the other dispensaries also carry our cartridges. Urban Wellness also carries our inhaler. So there's several dispensaries in the metro area and in the south and up north that carry our inhaler and our cartridges. Pecos Valley is our main LNPP down in the south, and New Mexican would be up north.
Gotcha. Very cool. So before we go, what other products do you make that we haven't talked about today?
We also manufacture a distillate syringe. It's a high-end syringe in itself with a metal plunger, which makes it truly reusable. I'm not sure if you've seen some of these syringes out on the market.
I have.
But after a few if you were to fill it with either your own distillate or your own oil, after a few uses, you see that plunger becomes kind of ineffective, and the silicone grommet that is used to as a plunger becomes completely ineffective as it completely comes out. So the metal plunger in itself, which is also removable and unscrewable, so that you can fill the cartridge without actually fill the syringe without actually removing the plungers. One of the cool advantages to that plunger in itself.
What would people be refilling it with? Just something they made at home, you mean, or?
If anybody who either made a FECO cartridge, something that they would create at home, they could use that same syringe various times, because it is, like I said, it is reusable. It's not going to come apart on anybody. And then we're also going to be introducing a sublingual spray similar to the inhaler, almost like a Banaka spray.
Oh, cool. Yeah. How about strips?
Yeah.
How about those the dissolvable strips that people had them in California for years?
We're working on dissolvable strips. We're also working on possibly doing a transdermal patch as
great.
well.
I don't know if there's any patches in this state. I haven't seen any. I know that I've seen some come down from Colorado, from Mary's Botanicals and Mary's Medicinals, but I haven't seen any patches in this state. So I think that's a great idea.
So so we're trying to stick on more of the pharmaceuticals end of things. The inhalers, the sublingual sprays. We're also going to be working on THC capsules. Possibly a THC suppository for those with Crohn's disease. We're working on more of the pharmaceutical type of products rather than edibles. And don't get me wrong, we have cartridges, but that's only a small sector of what our menu will be within the next year and a half.
Right. So a couple more questions before I let you go. How is the possibility of recreational adult use going to affect your business model?
Right now we're really focusing on being able to address the needs of the medical cannabis community. We do work, a lot with PPLs who need extraction services.
So that is legal now, right? The DOH is now allowing professionals to extract for PPL. So how does that work? I have a PPL, so if I brought you a pound of my grow, how do you work that out?
So essentially what we would do is we would take anything above your 8 ounces that you are allowed to have by the state, and rather than destroying that other medicine, it's actually, we will take your PPL, we'll take a copy of that, we'll annotate how much you gave to us, and then we'll run an extraction for you. Even if you did want to go ahead and extract the 8 ounces that you're allowed, we can also do that for you as well. It doesn't matter what you want to send us, whether it's anything above your 8 ounces or everything at all. We'll go ahead and extract it, and what we'll do is we'll give you back your allotted units based on your state allowance, and anything above that, we'll offer to go ahead and purchase from you as a finished product. In itself, it's something that the state will allow us to do as a finished product. That allows those patients to get their medicine in different delivery methods, and possibly if they have a surplus of medicine, possibly have something to help support them slightly. It's something that the state hasn't, they're very vague as to how it is that they're allowing it, but we're following it to the letter of the law essentially, and we're doing it essentially. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would also tell the PPLs out there to follow the letter of the law too, and probably only bring you 8 ounces. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So at what point would that material be tested, if at all, from a lab?
It's test. We have our own testing equipment that we have in house. However, we also send our final product to the state for final testing. We do our in-house QAs to make sure that that we're as efficient as possible in our extraction. So we'll do an initial test of the incoming product to see what our yield is going to look like based on the cannabinoid profile and THC percentage. We'll run it, and then at the very end, we'll go ahead and send it for state testing to obviously allow it to be put in the pool of of products that are being sold at dispensaries.
Fantastic. Well, Alejandro, anything else that you'd like to mention that we didn't cover?
No, I think we covered just about everything that we do here at Bota Labs. We strive to provide a transparent product, and we have a very limited amount of ingredients that we put in any of our products, which are all naturally derived, and nothing is synthetic, and it will never be synthetic.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for telling us about Botanical Laboratories International, also known as BOTA, B-O-T-A Labs, here in New Mexico. And I wish you great luck and with the oncoming recreational that might or might not happen in 2020. We'll find out about that. But it seems that our governor and the people that were putting together this bill have really taken medical into consideration to save our medical program, because they've been disappearing in other states and so forth. So I'm really happy about that, and I'm happy that BOTA is involved in medical products. I think inhalers are great. I think we're going to need suppositories and everything that is medical. So thank you, Alejandro Garcia. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, definitely. Thank you very much for having me, Larry. I appreciate you.
We'll be right back after this.
This one is for all Muzungu, Bandidila, the earth, all over the earth. Men like
it's all about being able to grow. If you can't grow, no go.
Homegrown in my backyard, the best herb you could ever find. Homegrown in my backyard, and if the public knows it's mine, if you come over to my place, I'll give you a taste. Memories cannot erase from your mind, 'cause it's the best you can find. Anywhere you go, so let me hear you sing. Homegrown in my backyard, the best herb you could ever find. Homegrown in my backyard, and the public knows it's mine. Singers and players of instruments, lawyers, doctors, prince and princesses always wanna see me, 'cause the best in life is free. Yeah, homegrown in my backyard, the best you could ever find. Homegrown in my backyard, and the public knows it's mine. Yeah, yeah. Come over to my place, I'll give you a taste. Memories cannot erase from your mind, 'cause the Jackson knows. Michael Jackson knows. Mr. Farrakhan knows. Yeah. Bill Clinton knows. Bill Clinton too. Fidel Castro knows. The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
By the way, that was Homegrown featuring Morgan Heritage and Humble African, a group called Culture as well. So the song was Homegrown. Anyway, I also want to thank Alejandro Garcia from Boda Labs. That's Botanical Laboratories International here in New Mexico. Thank you for coming on, talking about your products. Also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. If you'd like to be on the show, if you have a story to tell, a product to sell, you're an advocate, an activist, a patient, write me at info@mmjradio.com. Again, info@mmjradio.com. If you'd like to listen to some of our old shows, we're in our 10th season, over 500 shows. You can go to mmjradio.com, also medicalmarijuanaradio.com. My YouTube channel is LSLove88. SoundCloud is MMJ Radio. On Spreaker and Cannabis Tube, on Spreaker we're MMJ Radio. On CannabisTube.net we are MMJ Radio channel. On Now TV channel 937, and coming soon, theCannaChannel.com.
Shalom and love. Peace and love. Shalom.
And chaos. Where it needs to be. Oh yeah. Fuck Trump. Let's get him out of here.